What we are trying to do is very simple, but very hard. The simplicity is that electricity is a basic human right. What we all take for granted, education, healthcare, safety, going up in an elevator, charging your smartphone, access to AI, which requires not just computing power, but also electricity. We take that for granted, but people in Africa cannot, because when you fly over Africa, the dark patches you see are not absence of people. They're people living the way their forefathers did. In the 21st century, that is a matter of some degree of shame for all of us. It has to change. What we're trying to do, Akin and I, is to put our combined shoulders at that effort. What we're trying to do is to create quality of life and livelihoods for African people. And in my mind, if you step back for a second, that will come from 3 or 4 or 5 things. And the first one is infrastructure. The second one is healthcare. The third one is work around agriculture as a business. The fourth one could be value-added manufacturing, including of critical minerals. The fifth one could be sustainable tourism. These are all great, but none of them work without electricity. So the foundation of all this is energy, and preferably done the right way with renewable energy. That's the logic of this thing. What we are trying to do is to get together with 15 countries to start with, but including more as we go along, to create energy compacts for each country, which really means an agreement on how we will go from here to there and what all needs to change and evolve as we go from here to there. And then we lead up to it with a summit in Tanzania, and the Prime Minister is here. They are the hosts of that summit and great partners for the two of us. And that summit is at the end of January, on the 27th and 28th of January. And we're going to try and sit each head of state down with people to discuss the changes that need to happen on utility reform, regulatory reform, inter-regional connection of grids, things that go from this conversation at 80,000 feet to the reality of day-to-day delivery. We know this works. It's not the first time. If you look at Rwanda, you look at Mozambique, or you look at Tanzania itself, they've all made great strides. Rwanda has made enormous strides. Mozambique is making some. We've tested out this idea with Tanzania and other countries. It works. So we know it can work. The question is, what holds us back from delivering it in that case? And to my mind, it's all about people and trust. It is not that people have not wanted to do this in the past. They've talked about this earlier. Why does it not get done? Mostly because either people don't cooperate rightly, or they don't trust each other, or you start trying to find ways to create space for your organization and your name to get better noticed than the other. This is not about us and you. This is about all of us together. We're kind of in this game because without electricity in Africa, without jobs and livelihood in Africa, just think through the 1.2 billion people in the emerging markets coming through the pipe. A large number of those are in Africa. They will be eligible for a job in the coming 10 to 12 years. If we do not give them a job, we do not give them dignity. Poverty is a state of mind as much as it is a state of being. So we have to find a way to give them dignity. Jobs will not come without all these things, from infrastructure to healthcare to manufacturing. None of that happened without electricity. It's time to find a way to do it together. We're trying to do this, 250 million from us, 50 million from him. I don't care whether it's 100 from him and 300 from me or 200 from me. I just want to get the darn 300 million into electricity in the next 7 years.
were one of the architects of the New Deal for energy back in 2016. RJ mentioned a lot of things there: trust, partnerships, I think accountability too when you start announcing these projects. Just your perspective, how do we get it right? What lessons have we learned? And why is electricity penetration so low despite the efforts?
No, thanks, Julia. And first, let me thank you, Prime Minister Storey, President of Liberia, Prime Minister of Tanzania, and my dear friend and brother, Rasha. First and foremost, your point is that I think RJ said it. Development is about dignity, correct? And there's no dignity when you don't have electricity. You know, you take a look at Africa today. You got 3 people, 16% of global population, 3% of the global electricity access, only 6% of the global energy access. How do you do that? Just before we came in here, I was talking to 2 folks working for GIAB about should we make a case for why we should invest? Actually, we were just talking about that in energy. I say absolutely yes, because as RJ said, energy is all about how you actually grow economies. It's how you actually invest in industries. It's how you actually create jobs, right? So you cannot really grow global economy without energy. In any case, with Africa just being 2% of that, 3% of that, it means Africa's participation in the global economy will continue to be low. And Africa cannot be at the bottom of the global value chain. You cannot industrialize in the dark. You can't grow in the dark. You can't do that. And so this is fundamental to Africa's growth, development, competitiveness globally. Now, when it comes to the issue of what the numbers are, it's alarming. You know, we have today, the numbers we use to pan around is that it's 600 million people without access to electricity. I think those numbers are actually quite on the low end, because with COVID, rising inflation, with a lot of poverty, many more people that are actually using electricity are now using coal and other things. So that number has actually gone up quite significantly. So the issue that we must therefore say is, what must we do? We need a quantum leap. This is why I'm so excited with my partnership together with Ajay. Both of us met and we say, look, we're going to look really silly here. There's nothing new about getting electricity done. It's all about making sure we have scale, we have the resources, we have the partnership, we have the governments, and we then say, without electricity, it's nothing. Look, he was talking about the issue of migration. You know, you take a look at insects, okay? Insects, you turn off this light and and put on light. Where do the insects go? They know better, right? They go to where there's light. It's the same with migration. You know, people don't have electricity, they're gonna move to where there is electricity and where there's better quality of life. And so your question is, why hasn't it happened? It hasn't happened because, for many reasons. First is that we have not prioritized energy in the national plannings for many countries, right? So that's the first thing. So the amount of budget devoted to energy is actually quite low. The second is the fact that a lot of the infrastructure are quite dilapidated. We have not actually done it. Most of it is on energy generation. So for example, you take the UNGA, for example. Grand UNGA, we've been talking about it forever. Now that alone is about 70,000 megawatts. If you actually got it done, then of course, we will have solved this problem. The other part is, even if we have the power generation, Ajay, is how do you evacuate the power? I'm just coming in from from Angola, where they have 5.2 gigawatts of power. But they're stranded with 1.5 gigawatts. They can't evacuate it because of what? There's no transmission line. And so we have to therefore invest a lot in transmission line. Now, I remember also the importance of distribution line. I went to Kenya a couple of years ago, and we went to a particular project where we called Last Mile Connectivity Project. And there's a lady, as we were going in, her name was Grace, which happens to be the name of my wife, but she was not my wife. So we were walking, and somebody asked and said, and this is the point, I'm just trying to use it to reinforce the point that Ajay made. He said, do you know Dr. Adesina? She said, no. Do you know African Development Bank? She said, no. All I know was that we never used to have electricity, and now we do. And that's what we are talking about here, is putting together an alliance, not of flags, not of institutions. You know, all of you around here are equally as important as Ajay and I. So both in terms of governments, in terms of multilateral development by bilateral agencies, and also philanthropic agencies and all of that. Now, 2 more things about why this has not happened. It's just capital.
We are done dreaming of an industrialized Africa. No more enduring long journeys in darkness. No more imagining life without constant power. We are done. We are done. Done tolerating 24 hours without power, load shedding, blackouts, and power cuts. Enough. Imagine a life where our abundant natural resources can't power a generation. We can't cope with that reality. 600 million Africans still lack access to power. We have the solution. It's time to turn imagination into action. African Energy Week 2024 is the platform to implement change, sign deals, and take decisive action. And implement. Join us. Invest in African energies. Energy growth through an enabling environment, and be part of the movement that brings hope to millions across the continent. It's not just about power. It's about empowering lives and giving African hope. Be there to witness the transformation. African Energy Week 2024, where imagination becomes reality. Secure your seat now. Don't miss out on African Energy Week 2024. Visit our website and buy your tickets today. Let's light up Africa and create a brighter future together.
Project. At the time you need to build that project. Sign, baby, sign.
I want to talk about the how and what makes this different. I know you want to talk about other things too, and I think your balance of guarantees and incentives and changing what we've done in the past is essential to be able to scale this.
So,
how, please, in 6 years?
we've done stuff in the past. The bank has connected 120 million people to electricity in the past 10 years. So it can be done, but this is a quantum jump. That's the point Arkeen's making.
Yes.
Why I talk about partnership, the second part of it is capital. Partnership is because we need governments. Some are here at the table, many more will be at the Tanzania summit. One of the biggest challenges is regulatory policy clarity around how to get power distributed, managed, and generated. That's the point he was making about utilities and the like. The second big, and of course for the private sector to invest side by side, if you don't have regulatory policy clarity, you will take your money and go elsewhere. That's how simple it is. So we do need that. But the second part of it also has to do with people like us working better together, which is what our working groups are trying to do. And remember, small things. If our procurement standards are different in Tanzania, and the Prime Minister of Tanzania is trying to implement a project where we are both financing, he has to deal with two sets of things. If he had so many people available to deal with two sets of things, he would be dealing with them already. And therefore, the need for us to become simplified is mission critical to this game. The third aspect of this is people like GIAP and Davilola and SC for All. Right now, and Andy, where's Andrew? He's sitting here. Why are these folks important? They're important because of three things. One, they bring concessional capital, truly concessional, of course. So does IDA. I'll come to that in a minute. But two, they bring on-the-ground expertise and knowledge and the ability to create convenings, which are very important. And three, they care deeply and think long-term about a topic. They are not focused on getting things done in 3 months and 6 months and 1 year. They are urgency, but what they're really thinking about is, where's the 5-year game? Where's the puck going so I can skate there? That's why these guys are so important. IDA is important because of this. You heard Raj, or I think the Prime Minister talk about how much money was required. We're going to have to get about 20 odd billion out of IDA. IDA is a remarkable resource for Africa. And it leverages every dollar 4 times. And, we're about 30 to 40% of the money goes out as grants. The rest is highly concessional. It's got 20, 30, 40-year paybacks. That's the kind of stuff he does. Yeah. And we do. We need that to happen. But that's only one part of it. The other part of it is going to be the private sector. And there's your alarm going. And the third part of it, which is important, is there's going to be, governments are going to have to put up money. If they had the money to put up, they would have done it already. Yeah. They're going through a difficult time. So one of the things we've struck as a deal with the IMF is their RST and the SDRs coming in while we try and figure out if it can ever be used as hybrid capital for us, we've struck a deal with them. We will go to a country and say, we are putting money in, let's say $1 billion into Tanzania tomorrow as the two banks. We need the private sector to bring $500 million. We'll work that, but we need the government of Tanzania to put up $1 billion to fix utilities and so on and connect the grid regionally. Where will that money come from? The IMF is willing to step in if they have a program with that country to extend a fiscal headroom credit for renewable energy. They can't finance projects, but they can finance generic policy and change reforms.
Okay, I've run out of time. Otherwise, I would ask you more questions and be told off and very quickly. And
Raj can be there.
Yeah. Oh, can he? He's just given me permission.
So why we are agreed before we get off grid? So let me
very quickly. I'm going to get fired.
No, get Raj on fire. Just to follow up on the point that was raised by Ajay, we have to think big about the money and think seriously about the money. This is going to require at least $190 billion to give Africa universal access to electricity. That's the number we're talking about. Okay, I'm saying universal access to electricity. So how we actually raise that capital and leverage the financing that we have is the critical thing. And so if you take the concessional financing part of it, blended finance is going to be very, very important. Ajay mentioned IDA. We also have the African Development Fund. So Prime Minister, financing those two vehicles, concessional financing, is very important. For us, for example, we will need $25 billion. Ajay probably wants $200 billion, but I'm pretty modest with him, so I'll take that.
I agree.
I call it ambitious.
The other point I wanted to say is just what we can do easily about this is the SDRs. And let me make the point. You see, the SDRs, when we started, we said there has to be recharting of SDRs to Multilateral Development Bank. We took the lead on that with the Inter-American Development Bank, and we came up with a framework which allowed the SDR recharting to be at least 4 times. And when I talk to Ajay, we think directly or indirectly, maybe it can even be 8 times. Now, here's the number. If we actually had $40 billion of SDR recharting to MDBs, that are AAA ratings, right? If we get 5 leverage out of that, that's $200 billion. That is a hybrid capital. It's a perpetual thing you have inside you can leverage that every single year. That solves the problem. And so I think, Ajay, what I would like to say is that, because we've been talking to Kristalina, but I think moving beyond that is actually to be bold here and say, why can't we have SDR to deal with power issue in Africa? Why can't we? Because we know we can deliver more than $200 billion using that in Africa every single year. The last thing that I just want to say is to thank the President of Tanzania, Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan, because when we mentioned this to her in Paris together with Prime Minister Story, when we were there for the clean cooking, she's very passionate about clean cooking. I am very passionate about clean cooking. I didn't start using glasses because I got smart. I started using glasses as a kid because I grew up cooking with my mother, cooking with charcoal, and cannot be. We still have almost 900 million women without access to clean cooking. So the things we take for granted in developed countries, cooking a decent meal, don't have to die from it. Why must we allow something like that to go on? So part of the thing, Damilola is sharing the thing together with all of you, some of the members of the work. We are committed, in addition to electricity, to making sure that we have to connect at least 130 million women to access for clean cooking every single year. And that's the 2 things. And we have said, Prime Minister Story was talking about it, we've committed from the African Development Bank $2 billion to the clean cooking agenda. So add that to $2.1 billion, that's $4 billion. All we need is $4 billion. So let's not forget the needs of women who actually have to, and we lose today, Julia, let me speak for them. We lose today 300,000 women in Africa from the effect of secondary cooking. Secondary smoke. And 300,000 kids dying for a basic thing like that.